the distribution and sales, and also with tariff protection. So the industry that be selected by the government was very lucky. And the Taiwan Production Committee performance was very well, and it was too powerful, so its power greatly exceeded its original power, and usurped the authority of Ministry of Economic Affairs and Ministry of Finance, etc., etc. So the government decided in spring of 1953 dissolving the Taiwan Production Board and consolidating all the operations into a single organization, the Economic Stabilization Board, 经济安定委员会, with 4 sections and 1 committee. And the committee, industry committee, is very important, chaired by Yin Zhongrong. So K.Y. Yin, as director of the industry committee, worked closely with American Economic Aid Team to launch specific industrial projects and provided with equipment, technology, and sometimes capital. So by so doing, they established new private enterprises. So such a model with integration of Industrial Development Committee plus Central Trust of China providing capital, providing market distribution, and American aid, Taiwan's new industry grew up fast. So lots of Taiwan's new industries, cement, polyester, plastic, rubber, soap, sewing machine, bike, were established in early 50s. And this is so-called 进口替代, the import substitution policy. But the import substitution policy was successful, but not easy. I'll give you an example. China Polyester Company. In 1953, American aid decided to develop polyester industry in Taiwan. And industry committee and American aid, they both agreed that the new industry should be given to private sector, be managed and owned by private enterprises. But strong opposition came from within the government, especially officials from Ministry of Economic Affairs. The reason the opposition argued that how could private sector afford an industry which required huge amount of capital and technology? So the government, the industry committee, Yin Zhongrong, had to communicate, negotiate, persuade with the Ministry of Economic Affairs. But finally, Chen supported. Yin Zhongrong obviously successfully persuaded Chen. Chen then was行政院长, the premier of the executive yuan. Chen endorsed Yin Zhongrong's and American aid's idea. So the polyester industry was given to a private enterprise. But even with the decision being made, ironically, surprisingly, Vice Minister of Economic Affairs, 经济部的次长, wrote a private letter to Yin Zhongrong expressing his resentment. In the letter, he criticized Yin Zhongrong, saying, in the past 2 years, you've been giving all the national resources to private sectors. By so doing, you are giving up all the Kuomintang control over social and national resources. And in the last paragraph of the letter, he requested Yin Zhongrong, quote, and quote, you should save a bowl of rice for mainlanders. 你应该为外省人留一碗饭. The implementation of this sentence means that the ongoing privatization policy will spell a disaster for Kuomintang state and the government. As you can see, in mid-1953, a lot of Kuomintang officials were still sticked into their belief in 三民主义的节制私人资本, restriction private capital, while promoting state enterprises. It's very hard for people to change their mind, very hard for people to change their understanding of how to solve a problem. But Yin Zhongrong obviously was one of the first group of people who changed their cognition of economic understanding. And Chen Chen was probably one of the very few in Kuomintang top leader to change his understanding of how to solve economic problem. But as the import substitution policy went smoothly, a debate erupted. In early 1953, some economists began to question who should be responsible for losing China. It is 1953, so these people had been quiet for almost 3 years because they knew the government and the people had to survive, fight for their survival. But in 1953, economic industrial situation was stabilized and political situation was stabilized. American aid already arrived. So Chiang Kai-shek's situation was fine in 1953. So people think that it was about time to review why we lost mainland China. Economist and also legislator Gao Yuetian, he questioned who should be responsible for losing mainland China. And he pointed out that it was the failure of planned economy. He said the planned economy, as practiced in Transmedia for so many years, have proven to be a complete failure. And the supporters of planned economy had mistakenly believed that a planned economy could improve people's welfare while avoid the defects of both communism and capitalism. And they erred in thinking that the approach would fulfill Dr. Sun Yat-sen's principle of people's livelihood. And economists such as Gao Yuetian, Zhao Gang, and many economists, they request that the only remedy for Taiwan is to develop industries by utilizing the people's strength, which means under the free economic system. During the debate, 3 different approaches emerged. One is planned economy. A lot of people, especially those among Kuomintang Party and the government, still supported planned economy. And the second group is free economy. Most were economists. And a third idea emerged. Some people proposed guided planned free economy, a mix of capitalism and socialism. Yin Zhongrong was one of this group of people. Yin Zhongrong said the guiding hand of the state would facilitate the more efficient function of the market economy. By so saying, Yin Zhongrong means the government will use command economy to promote market economy. Yin Zhongrong said, we need economic planning for realizing the free economic policy. And the plan is not to limit freedom, but to guide the free market economy along the correct path. But counterattacks came. Of course, you know, most of the Kuomintang members were still struggling with such a cognition change, such a challenge. And the opponents came from CEOs, managers of state-owned enterprises, and a lot came from government and government officials. And the strongest opposition came from so-called Sundanist orthodoxists, 三民主义派, and most of them were legislators, senators, and the members of the parliament, the Congress. For example, Luo Dunwei, legislator and also economist. Luo Dunwei was furious. He criticizing those who propose market economy, saying that, you know, it's ridiculous for a follower of Dr. Sun to oppose planned economy, and such behavior is just like that of a designer who opposed making a plan. And the planned economy was merely an economic system with a steering wheel. And how can someone take his hands off the steering wheel without the car going out of control? So that debate still continued, but the debate became heated in 1953, and it was triggered by government's 土地改革 land reform policy, especially that of the land to the tiller, 耕者有其田. And we don't have time to get into land reform, but let me brief you quickly. There are three steps for land reform. First is 37.5% rent deduction, means that the rent cannot be exceed 37.5%. This is very easy. Government could easily issue an announcement. And the second step was sale of public land. Kuomintang government had 20% of the arable land in Taiwan at that time because the confiscation of the Japanese assets in 1945. So beginning 1951, Kuomintang began to sell their land to farmers. And the farmers will pay back in 10 years without interest. And the third step was land to the tillers, which means each and every farmer would have its own land to till. But in 1953, government didn't have any land. They had already sold out all their land in 1951. Government didn't have land, nor the sufficient fund to buy land from landlords. Debate again among the government. Two groups of people arguing proposed two different solutions. One led by Tai-chun Kuo, son of Chiang Kai-shek. They said, oh, it's easy. We could easily requisite land from landlords. By requisite, he meant confiscate the land from landlords. But the other group, led by technocrats, Xiaozhen, Ran Yicheng, they said, no, we should not jeopardize interests of any part. Let's try to work out a win-win policy. Let's try to find some fund to purchase land from landlords. But during such a heated debate, Chen decided to support technocrats. So Chen relied on his technocrats to find a solution to buy lands from landlords. Smart officials like Yan Jiagan, then Minister of Finance, Yin Zhongrong, Director of Industry Development Committee, and Ren Xianqun, he was then a Provincial Government Finance Commissioner. They proposed a bold plan. Funds would be raised through the privatization of selected state enterprise assets. This was a bomb to Kuomintang because privatizing state-owned enterprises touched the raw nerve among Kuomintang members, because Dr. Sen said it clearly that the government should protect state enterprises, should restrict the development of private enterprises. So debate was further heated. And if you can go to the East Asian Library, check journals in early 50s, almost all the journals, political, economic, financial, even movie bulletin, and the editor was like private economy or market economy, state enterprises or private enterprises, and which system will solve Taiwan's economic problem. So many people were asking the same question: which economic system should emerge in Taiwan? Which economic system would be effective for Taiwan's future? But debate still ongoing, and the ongoing debate also gave an opportunity to Kuomintang political economic leaders. For example, Chiang Kai-shek. And it was about the time Chiang Kai-shek began to change his understanding of solving economic problem. Wang Zhaoming, who was then a young official at the Industry Committee,